Picture this. You are standing on the shore of a lagoon at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. The water in front of you is the color of strong tea, still and silent. Across the lagoon is an island, completely overgrown. The trees grown wild, the pathway swallowed by vegetation. If you look closely through the brush, you can see structures, a faded sign, the skeleton of an old attraction, buildings with their windows broken out slowly being pulled back into the Florida swamp. This island is inside Walt Disney World. It is a 15-minute walk from a parking lot where families are arriving right now to spend $200 a ticket on the most magical place on Earth. And almost none of them know it is there. Disney World is famous for being immaculate. Every piece of gum scraped off the pavement overnight. Every light bulb replaced before it burns out. Every blade of grass cut to the same height. It is the most obsessively maintained square mileage in the entire United States, which is exactly why the abandoned corners of it are so unsettling. Because Disney does not abandon things by accident. When Disney walks away from something, it is always a decision. This is the story of the parts of Disney World that the company built, opened, operated, and then quietly let rot. The water parks left to the alligators. The island left to the vines. The attractions left to decay behind walls that guests walk past every single day. And the thing I need you to understand is that every one of these abandoned places was once somebody's favorite. Every one of them was, on its opening day, the most exciting new thing Disney had ever built. And every one of them is now a ruin inside the happiest place on Earth. We start with the island in the lagoon. It is called Discovery Island, and it sits in the middle of Bay Lake, near Disney's Magic Kingdom. Discovery Island opened in 1974 as a tropical nature park and zoological attraction. Guests took a boat across the lake to reach it. Once there, they walked shaded trails through a genuine botanical collection, surrounded by exotic birds, tortoises, alligators, and lemurs. It was accredited as a genuine zoological park in 1981. For a certain generation of Disney World visitors, Discovery Island was a beloved, slow, peaceful counterpoint to the chaos of the main parks. And then, in 1998, Disney opened a much larger attraction called Disney's Animal Kingdom. The new park made the small island zoo redundant overnight. On April 8, 1999, Discovery Island closed to guests. The animals were relocated. And then, Disney simply walked away. The buildings were left standing. The pathways were left in place. The signs were left hanging. For over 2 decades, Discovery Island has sat in the middle of Bay Lake, completely abandoned, slowly being reclaimed by the Florida wilderness, while ferry boats full of guests pass within view of it every single day on their way to the Magic Kingdom. Urban explorers who have illegally reached the island over the years have documented what is left. Empty animal enclosures, a laboratory with specimen jars still on the shelves, buildings full of mold and collapsing ceilings, a film of decay over everything. It is one of the most genuinely eerie abandoned places in the United States, and it is sitting inside the most visited vacation resort on the planet. A short distance from Discovery Island, on the shore of the same lake, is the second ruin, River Country. River Country opened on June 20th, 1976, as Walt Disney World's very first water park. It was designed to look like an old-fashioned swimming hole, the kind of rope swing creek a kid in a Mark Twain novel might splash around in. The water slides emptied into a section of Bay Lake itself, filtered and treated, so guests were essentially swimming in lake water styled to look rustic. For a generation of families in the late 1970s and 1980s, River Country was summer. It was the place you went to cool off. But over the following decades, Disney built 2 larger, more modern water parks, Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach, and River Country began to look small and dated by comparison. Then, around the turn of the millennium, the state of Florida introduced stricter regulations regarding natural water and the bacteria it can carry. Regulations that made River Country's lake water design far more complicated and expensive to operate safely. River Country closed temporarily in November of 2001 for what was supposed to be a seasonal closure. It never reopened. For years, Disney gave no official explanation. The park simply sat there, fenced off, the pools draining and filling with rainwater and algae, the slides rusting, the wooden structures rotting, the whole thing slowly being consumed by the Florida swamp on the edge of the lake. Photographs that leaked over the years showed a genuine ghost park. Drained pools streaked with green, slides going nowhere, a snack bar frozen in 1980. Disney officially confirmed River Country would never reopen in 2005, 4 years after it closed. The structures were finally demolished around 2019 after nearly 2 decades of abandonment to make way for a new resort hotel. For 18 years, Disney's first water park sat rotting on the shore of Bay Lake, 100 yards from a luxury resort, while guests paid premium prices to stay within sight of it. The third ruin is not a whole park. It is a single attraction, and it is one of the most beloved rides Disney ever abandoned. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was a submarine ride that opened at the Magic Kingdom in October of 1971 on the park's opening day. It was based on the 1954 Disney film, and it was a genuine engineering marvel. Guests boarded actual submarine vehicles that descended below the surface of a massive lagoon, traveling past coral reefs, sunken ruins, a giant squid, and a battle sequence, all viewed through portholes below the waterline. The attraction was enormously popular, but it was also enormously expensive to run. The submarines required constant maintenance. The lagoon required constant treatment. The ride had a low hourly capacity for the amount of space and money it consumed. In 1994, Disney closed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, citing maintenance costs and low capacity. And then, in a pattern that should now sound familiar, Disney simply left it. The submarines were left floating in the lagoon. The lagoon was left to stagnate. For years, guests walking through Fantasyland could look over a fence and see the abandoned submarines sitting in a lagoon that had turned a deep, murky green, slowly rusting, going nowhere. Disney drained the lagoon in 2004, a full decade after the ride closed, and parked the submarines in a backstage area, where some of them reportedly sat for years longer before most were scrapped. The site was eventually paved over and turned into a meet and greet area and later a part of the Fantasyland expansion. An entire generation of Disney fans still talks about 20,000 Leagues as one of the great lost attractions, a ride so expensive and so beloved that Disney could neither afford to run it nor bring itself to quickly erase it, so it left it to rot in plain sight for 10 years. Not every Disney ruin is consumed by swamp. Some of them are quietly gutted in the middle of a shopping district. Disney Quest opened in 1998 at what was then called Downtown Disney, now Disney Springs. It was an ambitious idea. A 5-story indoor interactive theme park, packed with virtual reality experiences, video games, and digital attractions. Disney announced it as the prototype for a national chain. The plan was to build Disney Quest locations in cities all over the country, bringing the Disney theme park experience indoors to places that were nowhere near Orlando or Anaheim. A Disney Quest opened in Chicago in 1999. The Chicago location closed in 2001 after barely 2 years, a complete financial failure. The national chain was quietly canceled. The original Orlando Disney Quest survived, but as a forgotten relic, its technology aging rapidly in an era where home video game consoles were quickly surpassing anything the arcade could offer. Disney announced Disney Quest's closure, kept it limping along for years past the announcement, and finally shut it permanently in July of 2017, nearly 20 years after it opened. The building was gutted and converted into the NBA Experience, a basketball-themed attraction, which itself struggled and closed during the pandemic. The $40 million idea that was supposed to become a national chain became a single building in Orlando that has now failed twice. Disney Quest is a different kind of Disney ruin. Not a romantic ghost in the swamp, but a corporate misfire, a vision of the future that the future immediately rendered obsolete, abandoned not because it was loved and too expensive, but because it was a bet that simply did not pay off. Here is what connects all of these stories. And here is why this is not just nostalgia. Disney is still doing this right now. In July of 2025, Disney permanently closed Tom Sawyer Island, an opening day attraction from 1971, to make way for a new themed area. In February of 2026, Disney permanently closed Dino Land USA at Animal Kingdom. Both are now behind construction walls. The Rivers of America, a centerpiece waterway that had been part of the Magic Kingdom since opening day, was drained to make way for new development. Across all 4 Walt Disney World parks right now, there are sections sitting behind blue plywood, drained, demolished, or paused, waiting on a $60 billion expansion that Disney announced in 2023 and has been quietly slow to actually deliver. Every abandoned place in this video was once a brand new attraction that Disney was proud of. Discovery Island was state-of-the-art in 1974. River Country was the future in 1976. 20,000 Leagues was an engineering marvel in 1971. Disney Quest was the prototype for a national chain in 1998. Every single one of them was, on its opening day, exactly the kind of thing currently being built behind those construction walls, which means the attractions Disney is building right now, the ones in the concept art on the construction barriers, are simply the abandoned places of 30 years from now. The cycle does not stop. The park eats its own history continuously, abandoning yesterday's marvel to build tomorrow's, and the ruins pile up in the backstage areas and the overgrown islands and the drained lagoons, just out of sight of the guests paying premium prices to experience the newest version of the same magic. Here is what Disney's abandoned places actually teach, and it is bigger than nostalgia for a water park. Disney sells permanence. That is the entire emotional promise of the brand. Disney tells you that the magic is timeless, that the memories you make there will last forever, that you can bring your own children one day to experience the exact same wonder you felt as a kid. The slogan is the happiest place on earth, present tense, eternal. But Disney is a publicly traded corporation that answers to a quarterly earnings call, and the actual operating logic of the company is the opposite of permanence. Attractions are assets. Assets are evaluated on return. When an attraction stops generating enough return per square foot, it is closed, regardless of how many childhoods are attached to it, and the land is redeveloped into something with a higher yield. Discovery Island was not closed because anyone stopped loving it. It was closed because Animal Kingdom made it financially redundant. River Country was not abandoned because it stopped being fun. It was abandoned because 2 newer water parks captured the revenue, and new regulations made the old one expensive. 20,000 Leagues was not removed because guests disliked it. It was removed because it consumed too much money and space for the number of people it could move per hour. Every one of these decisions was rational. Every one of them was correct from the standpoint of a spreadsheet. And every one of them quietly broke the central promise the brand is built on, which is that the magic lasts forever. The magic does not last forever. The magic lasts exactly as long as it generates an acceptable return per square foot, and not one day longer. The overgrown island in the lagoon is the truth that the brand is designed to hide. It is what Disney actually is, underneath the slogan. A company that builds wonder, charges admission to it, operates it until the math changes, and then lets it rot in a place where the paying guests cannot quite see it. The families arriving in the parking lot this morning will make real memories today. Those memories are not fake, but the place where they make them is not permanent, and it was never going to be, because permanence was never actually the product. The product was the ticket. And somewhere across the lagoon, Discovery Island is still out there, still rotting, still 15 minutes from the happiest place on earth, waiting to remind anyone who looks closely enough what happens to magic when the math stops working. If you made it to the end, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments which lost Disney attraction you still miss the most. Because every single one of them was somebody's favorite.